Banana Slam Jam.
Hey guys, this is going to be a video for what I believe to be the top meta heroes in every position leading into the major in Stockholm. Today is the 10th of May and the major starts this week. So I want to give you guys an idea of what type of meta you're going to be looking at. It's probably going to be just some developments over the course of the tournament, but I think it's been pretty solidified leading up to the major, what the overall vibes are going to be coming out from each position. So we'll do a little bit of a countdown. We'll start with 5 position. I think 5 position right now is all about heroes that scout for their team, sit behind their team, or lane dominate, or all the above. So the heroes that I'm really going to go with, I think most broken 5, and we'll see him in almost every game, is Pugna. I think despite the nerfs, his ward is just too good. The ability to group up and take objectives such as Roshan Towers around this ward, if you get even a slight lead, the game's kind of just over because he gives his team health and mana, and then he also protects them, and he also takes towers himself. So he's kind of just got everything going for him as well as being a strong laner. Next up is I think Inch is still strong. She may even be rotated occasionally to a 3 position, but even though they nerfed her early game with creeps, I think she can still make it work with a lot of these lower level creeps in the lane. A lot about the small camp now. And some of the big camp creeps are still very powerful. You just can't take the large ones. So I think with Enchantress specifically, the fact that she just makes it so hard to lane in the mid game can also just kind of collapse the map, similar to Pugna. You fall behind it all. She serves as a mobile ward. Same vibes there. Next up is Bane. I do think he's going to struggle against some of the summons heroes in the current meta, but the thing about Bane is that he does a lot when you have a 4 that's more farm oriented, as well as kind of lacking a stun. And because a lot of the popular 4s fit that description, having gank set up from your 5 is going to be really important. Lane dominator that I think is going to be a bit slept on leading up to the major and will come into fruition throughout it is Lich. I just think overall he offers similar vibes to Pugna with the Frost Shield and overall lane dominance. He is a bit slower and he's not as versatile, but I think the fact that he secures pretty much every carry in early game and then helps them scale into the late game with tankiness is something that's really important in the current meta. And also Undying is my 5th. I had to put one melee hero in there. I was thinking about Abaddon. Perhaps some teams have been picking Clockwork, but I do believe that Undying is the best at securing objectives just like Pugna because of Tombstone, and then he's also just really good against certain offlaners. And a lot of these offlaners, these strength offlaners that are wanting to be first round picked, I think Undying will be used to look to shut them down. Moving on to the 4 position. I think the 4 really is all about ranged damage dealers for the most part. Heroes that are follow-ups to the stuns in the offlane, kind of synergizing with what I'm going to say about offlaners going into the major. I think the best 4s are Mirana. Wyvern got really buffed, and the new buff to her first spell makes it so that she can just click people in lane. It gives her a lot more range, and even though it doesn't actually make her ability do more damage, she can trade a lot more effectively. The uptime feels a lot better, and then she's gotten some nice new talents that just help her scale better into the late game as a 4 position. I think she's kind of upgraded from a 5 position because the hero isn't as good as it used to be with no items, but can scale awfully scary with items. And she serves as great team fight setup, great follow-up, great counter initiation, and I think anytime Wyvern can get out of the lane, she's one of the most conceptually broken supports in the game, just because she saves anyone on her team, punishes the opponent for grouping up at any point, and forces you to go on her, really. BKB piercing disables are also nice. Next up is Io. I think Io is just too good at controlling the map in these professional matches. I think that Io basically guarantees a 1 lane, and it can be played as 5, but usually it has a little bit higher farm priority. But I put it at 4 just because that's oftentimes where it's laned, or at least farm priority. I still think Coddle is a top tier position 4. I think he's kind of lost his gusto as a mid laner due to the recent nerfs. But other than a little bit less mana that he's giving his team in lane, I don't think you really notice it later on. And it's really all about staying on the map when you have a hero like Coddle. He's very similar to Pugna in terms of what he offers. And the biggest part about Coddle is that you really never have wave clear issues. You never have map control issues. And in competitive Dota, to have a support kind of tie those issues up is a really powerful tool. The sleeper pick I want to give for 4 position that I've been seeing pop up in some pubs and I've also felt like is pretty strong is going to be the Nyx Assassin. Out of all the melee heroes, I think he was most buffed and he's also very powerful against a lot of the heroes that I've kind of mentioned. The only concern with Nyx is summons lineups, because they kind of just group up and push, and he can't really do much against creeps. He only really hits heroes. So we won't be seeing him much in those games, but I think as a niche pick, he's going to be very powerful against the likes of Coddle and some of the mids we'll be mentioning later. Leading into the 3 position, I've got a few sleeper heroes, and I've got a few ones that you're like, Boar, Snore. These heroes have been good for a while now. I think the most obvious ones are Sand King. I think he's still very powerful. DK, also still very powerful. I think point-click stuns are really important from the offlane right now. You want heroes that scale with their abilities and are able to farm. So DK has a Shard, and then Sand King has Sandstorm. And this is just so important for offlaners right now. And the fact is, these heroes are just more reliable in lane than the likes of heroes like Axe. Doing similar purposes, having similar scaling potential, but they're just more reliable. And then the most conceptually broken hero in all of competitive Dota, doesn't seem to be that way based on his win rate in pubs, would be Mars. I personally believe Arena is probably the best spell in Dota, and what makes this hero so broken is that his spells force you to buy a BKB, and then he also has a spell that does damage through BKB, and he also can force ranged heroes to attack him with his 3rd spell. So he's like a tank that you can't really ignore. And conceptually right now, as long as his lane is good, which it is and it has been for a while, at least in competitive Dota, I think we're going to be seeing this hero be first pick, first banned in a lot of our series. I want to give a shout out to a few ranged heroes that I think will be the most powerful. I think Necro is still up there. I think his ability to just crush the lane as long as he gets off to a decent start is just, it's really hard to pick into Necro. I think that's the biggest part about this hero. He doesn't really lose lanes unless you tri-lane him or all in him, and he just makes the game plan for the opponent much harder. And being a carry against a hero that executes you at below half HP makes it quite difficult to itemize and play team fights. And a sleeper hero that for you guys might want to try in your pubs, because I think it's actually really nice in pubs, is Visage. The Vlad's buffs, the new boots have kind of settled in as an item for this hero. I think the aura items getting buffs will promote the likes of Lycan, Beastmaster, and Visage, and all these other summons heroes. But I do believe Visage is currently the best out of all of them. His laning stage is actually pretty decent. Soul Assumption is a huge nuke for level 1. And as long as they can make it work with the supports, you kind of have to pick a melee tank as the 4 position. I think Visage will be very scary as a 3 position at the major. Next up for the 2 position, I think the best hero is still Storm, despite the nerfs. I think it's similar to Mars in regards to what it offers, just simply cannot be matched. The Ags eventually gives him teamfight, his global presence in terms of just being able to zip from such long range, and pair it with these supports like Pugna and Coddle, and the change to Null Talisman that happened forever ago. The hero just can be anywhere and everywhere, and it makes the opponent have to change the way they play. And I think his laning stage is just too reliable. I feel like very rarely does he actually lose his lane in any significant way, which makes Storm quite a menace. Next up is Pango. I'm honestly utterly shocked his hero didn't get nerfed in 7.31c. He did get the Shadow nerf, which makes it so he can no longer chain stun you through BKB. If he hits you with roll and then he tries to hit you again, if you have a BKB, you can use it. But the hero just has too many good builds. The Diffusal buff change at the beginning of 7.31 was just too good for the hero. And I think he's kind of just been promoted to a mid. I think we'll occasionally see him as an offlaner too, but he is a bit more fragile in regards to bad lane matchups. Next up is Invoker. I think mid lane is all about active heroes. I really think that mid lane is so much about enabling the rest of your team to really make plays anywhere. You want to be a +1 for everybody. And I highly encourage fast, low cooldown rotators right now. So we saw it Storm, Pango, Invoker, mainly Quaswex. Maybe go Exort if you have a Faceless Void. But I think this archetype of mid laners right now is just exactly what we're looking for. And Ember is next up. I think he's a weaker spirit, but out of all the other mobile heroes, I think his laning stage is still pretty solid. And overall just represents the same thing in terms of the map presence. And has a lot more different items he can go, and a lot different roles he can play in the game. He can be that split pusher. He can be the guy leading the charge with a BKB. He just offers a lot in terms of the strategical part of the game. And my last one, I wasn't really sure, to be honest. I gave a shout out to Puck and Bat. I think these are more late draft picks that will kind of cheese people. Say they're lacking stuns for the Puck, or they're lacking a way to deal with the Batrider Boots of Travel timing. Both these heroes fit this low cooldown rotation idea, but I think they're much more situational in regards to lane matchups, being a bit weaker consistently, but I still think we'll see a pretty decent amount of them coming in as late picks at the major. Coming up at the carry position, I will say more carries here because I am a carry player and I know a lot more about the exact power level of all carries. At least I think I do. I do believe the carries of prior to 7.31C are all still viable. The Medusas, the TAs, the CKs, the Tinies. But I do believe their nerfs kind of leveled the playing field for heroes that were previously either unplayable because they were bad against these heroes, or they were kind of on the cusp of being good in these matchups, just to sheer raw numbers that these heroes had. I think the previous patch was best for carries in regards to the change, because the carry role, I think, wasn't because most carries are weak, because a few of them were just way stronger than the others. So the carries I'd like to shout out for the major that you guys may not be expecting. I do think illusion heroes are going to have a lot of presence. Too much single target right now. There's just a lot of single target, a lot of threat on lanes. It's really hard as a carry right now to show on lanes. So illusion heroes are naturally good in this type of situation because their illusions will safely push the wave. In this case, we're talking about CK, TB, PL, and Naga. I think we'll see all of them. I don't think it's going to be any one in particular. Maybe CK is the strongest, but I do think these heroes will play a crucial role in this major. And then in terms of a little bit of a surprise, I want to say I've been seeing a ton of carry Nature's Prophet. Now, please, I highly recommend you do not play carry Nature's Prophet in your pubs. This hero heavily relies on the rest of your team playing incredibly aggressive up in the face of the opponents. But these tempo carries, I think, are going to be really powerful. And the difference between Nature's Prophet carry now and any other patch, it's been picked in the past at majors, but the leash talent at level 20. The Sprout leashes, it goes through BKB. The only way to deal with it is a Force Staff. That's really it, because you can Force Staff through the trees. Any hero with mobility can't get out of it because of BKB piercing root. So I think Nature's Prophet just ups the tempo of the game. Another tempo carry I think we'll be seeing is Razor. He's just really good against the likes of Tiny, Medusa, TA, all the meta carries. So that puts him up on the stonks. And then my sleeper picks for carry that I've tried a few times recently, and I've also seen a decent amount recently, are Bloodseeker and Clinks. Bloodseeker, because his laning stage is incredibly powerful, and he matches up against the likes of Pango, a very popular meta hero right now, incredibly well. And then also Clinks, because out of all the ranged heroes, he's the best at not dying to ganks. I think that really comes down to it. I think it's really hard to make the likes of Luna, Drow, etc. work, just because of these global heroes, the consistent high-tempo ganks, and them just being overall squishy. While Clinks can be squishy, he does have his ultimate to give him HP, and he also can play kind of off-map with using Burning Barrage to farm and running around invis. So those are my top picks for the major. Not all of them would I recommend in your pubs, mainly the ones that also have little reliance on their team to make them work. Most notably heroes such as Io, Nature's Prophet, Enchantress may not be the best options in your pubs. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video on the meta heroes for the upcoming major in Stockholm. Thanks for watching. Bye. Like, comment, subscribe.